Kana is our special guest today. He's a famous product manager in London, not only in London, I think, but he's going to introduce himself and then start a wonderful, exciting, different, cutting-edge presentation about product management. So I guess we are all curious to know more about you and about the topic that you are going to share today. So thank you very much, Kana. The floor is all yours.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. And Hugo, thank you for inviting me. Just a quick few lines about myself. I've been working I'm originally from Croatia. I've been in UK since 2000, and I've been working in digital for roughly now last 20 years, majority of that across various product roles. And I've worked from running my own a business to work in startups, and over the last 6 years I really kind of have been in a place where I sold my soul to corporate establishment, which has been an interesting ride. I still didn't give up. I still have a hope. And at the moment, I'm working in Capita, in Capita Government Services, where I'm effectively transforming service-based organization into product organizations. So we are really building a product capability from ground up. And kind of as I was following Hugo's exponentially popular innovation cafe, I had an urge to share one of the most delightful experiences I had during COVID or during this lockdown. And it's kind of, there's that thing, right? Like when life gives you lemons, make a lemonade and kind of try to turn it into a positive experience. So if I think back, if I didn't, if it wasn't lockdown, I actually wouldn't have experienced this. So I thought I'll share that story with you. So hopefully you'll be delighted that there's no PowerPoints. It's a bit more challenging to tell a story when you're not in front of people, you're on Zoom, but I'll try my best. I have PowerPoints coming out of my ears, right? So I've really decided, I promised myself 2 weeks ago that I'm not going to touch PowerPoint at least for a month. So I'm sticking to that at the moment. Okay, not to waste any time, let me also, so Hugo asked me, he said I can have 30 minutes, but if I do 20, he'll be delighted. And this is all about creating delightful experiences. So I'm going to try to hit 20 minutes mark. So as we all went into lockdown, we started working from home. I was really not geared up from working from home. So, and kids and everybody at home. So I kind of, I went to Argos and I just got a cheap £25 desk because I didn't think this was going to be a permanent thing. And I nicked a dining chair from our dining room. And as the weeks were passing, it wasn't very comfortable. So the first thing I had to get out, I went out and I got a second monitor, and which was great. And then my back started hurting, and I decided I should get a chair. So I went on Amazon, started looking for chairs, and of course you find the best chairs are out there over £1,000. I don't think I could expense that. So I went around and I found a chair from a Japanese brand that had really good reviews. Looked around, seems like good value for money, so I ordered it. And sure enough, a few days later, a big box arrived, and there was the first surprise. As the box arrived, my kids were very excited. I've got 2 8-year-old boys. They like building things with me. So I said, Daddy, we don't want to go to sleep. We want to build this chair with you. So I said, okay, fine. And now what is the first thing you do, right? When you get a box like this, you look for something to open it. And normally I use my keys, or use a pen, or I use something, right, to start opening it. And this time there was something that was taped to the top of the box. Can you see what it is? Right? And I looked at it and I was like, what is that? And it was very clear straight away that actually this is a box opener. Right? So you could just go across the sellotape and you can open the box. I thought, how fantastic, absolutely brilliant, right? So you just went across and opened the box. First delightful experience. I was feeling it. Right? Now, here comes the thing. When I opened the box, what is the first thing I seen right at the top before anything else? Can you see that? Now, when did you ever order anything from IKEA where you got white gloves from? Now, as you can imagine, I was absolutely buzzing, right? This is kind of the start of your user experience. Now, to be kind of fair, here's another lesson behind kind of delighting customers. In my previous job, I've worked in international product launch, and I learned a few lessons around, you know, how to take products international and what are the various things that you need to take into account. Most of software developers think that, you know, taking products international is you really need to just, you know, translate your terms of conditions into various languages, enable multi-language, you know, files, and off you go. In this particular case, you could see that these gloves were obviously designed for much smaller hands, right? So while it was an extremely kind of pleasant surprise, it doesn't quite fit. My kids loved it, and I'll probably give them later on for them to play. So that was the start. It was a really great experience. Now, if we go to the basics of UX designing UX experiences, and if you go back to Kana model, which coincidentally comes from Japan, right? Now, let's face it, the best things that happen to product management, where did they come from? From Japan. We know lean, right? Lean manufacturing invented by Toyota back in the 40s, right, or 50s. And Kana model, again, you know, really the basis of great user experience comes from Japan. So we know that there is usable. IKEA is usable, right? I don't think anybody ever went and said, what a delightful experience, right? So then when I started opening in a box, as you can imagine, they were further little boxes that were all sellotape, now had a great tool. It was extremely easy to unlock them. So the next thing you're always looking, okay, so I've got all these pieces. How do I put all of that together? Now, so here was a very simple one-pager, right? Which is very easy to follow and made it very simple. And as you kind of have, they give you I'm going to put it closer so you can see all the different elements. Now, the first thing that puzzled me straight away is, as you can see, there are 3 or 4 different sets of screws. And when you take a look at those screws closely, they all kind of look quite similar. Now, they will tell you that they are they're screws of different sizes, but it's kind of quite to figure out, because you can see they're not kind of that distinct, and you would kind of think, and I was thinking, okay, so which one exactly it is? But then I figured out, can you see at the bottom of the thing, can you see a little measure tape? Right, so effectively you can now put the screw against that, and you can very quickly identify which screw is which, right? Another delightful experience. I didn't even sit on a chair yet, and I was absolutely gelling with the brand, right? Now, something else that got me as I started assembling and as I started reading this was the language, and was the approach, and was kind of the whole tone and the character of the brand, right? So one of my favorite consumer brands has always been Innocent Drinks, right? And what really won me is, you know, their extremely casual and fun approach, delightful approach to the packaging, right? And then I kind of, so when I pull this out, you can see there on the back, is this readable? Can you guys read? So if you pay attention, you can see it's a very casual language. It's very personal. But you could also learn another lesson about internationalization, and this is that you should really invest in proper translation, right? However, even with it, it made me feel good about my English, but at the same time, you find it actually kind of quite endearing. And though it's imperfect, because the entire experience that I have created, you know, I kind of really gel with them. There was lots of smileys. It was all kind of very personal, and you could see that they were very user focused. They were literally begging for feedback, and they were saying, "We are a small business, and without your feedback and reviews, we can't exist, right? And if you are not satisfied before leaving your word, let us make it right. Email us, and we'll do whatever it takes to make you happy. I want to personally thank you for being one of our customers. We love, in capitals, our customers, and we will always be here if you need us. Right? Now, immediate absolute connection with a brand. So if we again go back to, to the basics of creating user experiences, we know that the main thing is we want to have a product that's usable. That's the basics. We don't want to dip into creating a frustrating experience, but we want to provide something that's usable, but then we want to go into that upward curve into creating delightful user experience. Now, my heart nearly stopped at the next stage. So I followed instructions. It was quite straightforward. However, when I finished assembling it, I had 8 screws left. Now, that's normally not a good sign, right? It's like when we buy flat pack furniture, if you go back to IKEA, they're very kind of precise and economic, right? And there is down, if you have a screw left after you assemble the package from IKEA, you did something wrong. So you can imagine my panic, right? When I had 8 screws left. So I turned everything upside down. I looked for any extra holes. I was like, where can I possibly put the screws in? And just couldn't find anything. I went 3 times back to the user manual. I couldn't find it. So then there was a real acid test. Am I really going to dare to sit on the chair? And I really had no choice. So that was the kind of really moment, sitting down and just thinking, is this going to fall apart? And after this day, a month and a half later, the chair is still holding. So I would say, this was certainly not kind of part of the delightful experience. So in this particular case, if this was intentional, now you can understand small business, maybe they were not counting, maybe it happened by mistake, right? But if it's intentional, maybe you need to let your customers know, right, that that's intentional, right? Otherwise, you could see that this probably wasn't part of their user research. Because if you go back, so any of you who developed product from ground up and had the luxury to have funding to afford for the several rounds or continuous user research, you will understand that we are going to apply various methods. In this particular case, especially useful method is fly on the wall, right? Where we're going to give our product to users and observe how they're using it, right? So all of those little things, like we had that measure, like we had, gloves, like we had the opening, probably, I'm guessing, came out of that user experience. Now, having left all these screws, right, is probably not good for your bottom line. And you're making your customers kind of quite nervous about what is going on, right? But at the end, I didn't quite think that buying a chair like this and opening and assembling chair can be such a delightful and inspiring experience. Where literally on the next morning, I got my product team together. We extended the stand up. And I did a similar presentation like this, and literally threw the challenge back to the team. How can we go now well beyond of what we are doing today to create those delightful experiences for the customer? Because where we focus, the product that we are building, if we split products into 2, if we split them into game changers and to value creators, our product, let's just be modest, kind of falls into a value creator product, right? Which is great. We develop product on the back of very carefully, thoroughly researched value chain mapping, and we understand what we need to provide to be really usable to add value, right? But in this particular case, something that this experience has really taught me is that innovation is not really about adding new inventions, right? Innovation is about adding new value. And my challenge back to the team was, now this is great. We've got this value chain. It ticks all the boxes. We understand all the pains. Now, what can we do that goes beyond that? I certainly didn't need this box opener, right? Oh, sorry, I forgot actually. There was one more thing that was very delightful when I was opening the box. And that was the key. Now, little L-shaped keys that you get from IKEA, right? It's pretty much a kind of throwaway. They're painful, you know, they're not pleasant to use. Now here I got something that, look how ergonomic it is, right? It's absolutely brilliant. I've been using it since. It fits so well, it works very well, and it's going to sit with me. It goes into my toolbox. It's something I'm going to use, right? Now, in one sense, when I look at all of this for a chair, I really gelled with the brand, but I don't think I'll go back to them and buy anything else again because I probably won't need it, right? But consider if you created this kind of experience for a type of product where you want to create that very strong bond, where you have that repeat customer who's going to need something else tomorrow, something else the day after, right? Like in this particular case, they absolutely had me, right? I was willing to overcome so many different things and the problems with the screws and imperfect language and all of that. It was just absolutely meaningless. It didn't do anything. But the emotional impact that this had on me, it really created a strong bond with the brand that, yes, if tomorrow I needed another chair or something else that they were producing, they would be pretty much the first brand I'll be looking at. So I'm 2 minutes short of 20 minutes. And that is kind of pretty much what I wanted to share, is the power of delighters, right? So delighters product, you know, features or elements of your product that really delight, they're going way beyond your value that you really envisioned. And they're frequently not very expensive, but if you have them, right, they will make a difference. They will create that bond. They will create that, this is wonderful, I love this moment. And they will create that brand stickiness. And it will certainly bring, you know, it will increase that satisfaction, which will be a great positive thing for the business. How to design them? I think it really comes down to, you know, it's a kind of hard to put formula on innovation, right? We've got so many different, you know, there's so many different frameworks out there and approaches and the things that we would do, and it's hard to nail it down. If somebody asked me, so what would your recipe be? How would you go about creating delightful experiences? I would say that the approach that always delivered for me in the past has been kind of fly on the wall user research and observation. Because if somebody asked me, you know, what are your pains? We're opening a box. How would you open a box? I would never come and say, oh, can you create me a box opener? Because I wouldn't have seen that as a problem. I used my keys, I used the pen, I used and all of that, right? But I've seen an opportunity. They must have observed when, you know, when the box come in, what do we do? They really had a deep dive into that customer experience. And you could see one thing after the other that they've done, right? It resulted in a similar thing. So the things that that they created, they've put in, it probably don't cost very much at all. They're very likely completely offset, you know, by the cost of those screws that, you know, that mistakenly put in. But the impact was absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to stop there exactly on 20 and over back to you if you have any questions. So if you would like to share some of your most delightful experiences or the ways that you go about creating, you know, those delighters in a product.
No, wow, really, really well done. This was a TEDx presentation. 20 minutes, no slide deck. So well done. I know the effort to prepare something like this in perfect storytelling because here in the cafe we talk about innovation methodologies, techniques. And storytelling is clear one method as well. Let's say to delight clients, even from a sales viewpoint. I think it's a good thing we should know how to do well. You are a master, so thank you, sir. I have a question for you. How do you? And this is a tricky question, and you are going to understand why. How do you gradually transform a big team or organization into a mindset of delighting clients? Because it's not easy.
I believe in experiences, and I absolutely lost faith in PowerPoint decks. I always found, you know, Amazon has a great inspiration when it comes to product design. And one thing that, as you know, Bezos made it very clear, they don't do PowerPoint decks inside the company. And I can really understand why. So I would say, yes, you can put as many decks as you want and all of this. They're not going to have an impact as creating that actual experience where people can see the difference, right? So for example, if I go back and if I think right now, so in a position where I was at, I came into an organization that was 6 months ago that was heavily banned by their digital experience by previous providers, and they were extremely skeptical over everything, right? And the way I started engagement, I said, okay, do you know what? You know, I'm not going to produce all these big project plans and budgets and all this. Literally, give me funding for 2 weeks and review the progress and review what we've done every 2 weeks, and then fund the success. And you can kill it at any point, and then just carry on. And what we focused, and I had a very small team at that time, it was literally 3 of us, and we literally focused on creating experiences and showing the real deal to the management and what difference it made, right? So even let's say today, this morning, we had our first, as our team grew now, and we are at this size of 15 people, we had our first kind of management SLT meeting we were to present, and I told, okay, no slides, let's just show the real stuff, right? And it had a great impact. So my experience is to buy from leadership. Words are cheap, decks are cheap. Find a way to get 2 weeks runaway if you can, and in those 2 weeks show that you made a difference, right? Show a kind of real result, show that you moved the needle, and that's what people are going to buy. Does that make sense?
I think it does. Challenge is how to do that at the right pace in rhythm, because in particular now after COVID-19, many companies are struggling. Actually, we were talking about that just to warm up the cafe here with Benedict. Accenture just announced today that 900 will be out of job tomorrow here in London. So the thing is, we need to transform the organization. We need to start small to start a movement. But is it start small still a good technique nowadays? I don't know. This is an open-ended question, because organizations really need to transform faster. And we've been talking here in other sessions about the innovation process is broken. We need a new way, a faster way, a better way, or else many old, from a mindset point of view, companies will certainly decline soon. But in the other hand, we see others getting bigger and stronger. We were talking about that with Benedict a few minutes ago as well. So yeah, it's going to be fun. The upcoming days.
The way I look at it, I've sat on both sides, and the objectives that I set for my team for this year was, it's solely building credibility. It's winning hearts and minds and building credibility. And that means we were looking for small wins, right? We were looking for small wins where we can show and prove that our method and that our approach works. And that is paying off. I can see that every day, that we are getting incremental support. It's a bit like compound interest, right? It's a bit like compound interest. So you start investing in your shares or whatever you're investing, you have that compound interest. And at the beginning, that doesn't seem a lot, but suddenly it starts becoming a hockey curve, right? So yes, you could go big, and we see how sometimes that ends up, right? And while you have lots of words and you presented your big bet and you got a lot of funding, and 6 months later, a year later, you didn't show results, rather than something else, suddenly carpet is pulled under your feet and you're out, right? But if you start snowballing effect, right, and you are kind of building your credibility, you have data behind you, you are learning, you're failing fast, learning fast, and moving on just enough at a pace. I personally think that's a safer approach.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, just to share experience, when this COVID lockdown took place, normally I would have gone to my management and show big strategy for innovation for the rest of the year, and that suddenly was not possible because everybody was just virtual. So I was like, shit, what can I do to show impact and to convince them? And because everything was on virtual, we had to do brainstormings in virtual using the Miro whiteboard. And suddenly I realized everybody was engaged. I invite 10 people and suddenly 15 people show up, and then people asking, hey, can we also join? And so suddenly these silos or how you call them, suddenly they start cooperating. That's fantastic. And that was impact that my management knew after a few hours already. It was like spreading around, like, what the hell is going on? Marketing and sales, they are collaborating. What's going on? And suddenly it was like, okay, this is the impact of innovation. So, right, if you like it, if you love it, that's fine. So and from that on, I built up. I was really in a deep valley after this COVID lockdown. End of March was disaster for me. Budget was locked. They wanted to kill the whole innovation department, or at least put it on hold until end of the year. And so I really had to climb up out of this valley and show that for what it's worth to have.
Absolutely. Look, I firmly believe data is king, right? In data we trust. Our data, you're just another person with an opinion. So if you can start small things that you can afford, but that gathers data that proves your approach, like it's something that always fascinated me. Why do marketing departments always get the first cut in any crisis, right? Now, if you were able to show that, if you were literally able to show the data that every pound that I invest creates 10 pounds on the other side of the funnel, who in their sane mind would cut that?
Yeah.
I would literally love to see marketing department that was killed during crisis if they had a data to show. Purely because you're putting money in and you have no idea where it goes. You can't measure the impact. Nobody wants a certainty. Do I know what this pound is getting me back? I don't know. I'm going to take it back.
Exactly. And these virtual sessions made everything. My whole work was transparent. I mean, in these Miro whiteboards, everybody had access and everybody could see what I'm working on. I had people literally looking over my shoulder all the time. So I'm not a black box anymore. So that's okay. They understand what I'm doing and they see what's coming out like every day. Results. I never expected this, but as you say, that's cool. That proves.
Absolutely. Miro boards definitely opened the lemonade factory on the back of this crisis.
Yes.
There's actually a report proving that companies that during a crisis invest in innovation in marketing are more successful than the ones that do the opposite. I've shared that report a few weeks ago. I think it was in March or April. I've shared that on LinkedIn. And then another one specific to R&D and innovation. It's also the same thing. But I was talking with a friend today and he told me the same. My budget is now zero because of the innovation budget is now zero. Because some companies are really struggling with cash flow. And cash flow is the lifeblood of any organization. But the thing is it from now that they are in pain? I don't think. I think the problem started years ago without the right amount of investment in marketing, growth, and innovation. And COVID was just the last punch in the stomach. Guys, feel free to unmute. Cafe mode. No right, no wrong answers. No crazy questions as well. Everything here is acceptable. We can talk about hairstyle as well again.
But back to your point, I think cutting budgets to innovation and marketing that are properly executed today and that are backed by data that they're really bringing return on their investment, that clearly show how that is being tracked, right? It's a bit like, you're cycling and you start going up the hill and you say, okay, now it's getting hard, so I'm going to stop, I'm going to stop turning my pedals. It just doesn't make any sense, right?
Hey.
And the problem comes when you can't make a connection between the two.
Hi, Steph.
Hey guys, so obviously from one marketeer in the room. Hi, hi Kana. Thank you very much for that. I love you in the white gloves, by the way. the white the white gloves made my day. But it was a great talk, and I love the perspective, because experience essentially is everything now. And this morning I gave a talk, and it was about all the data and trust and privacy rules that are coming in, but also how do we get that experience piece over while adhering to data and AI rules. But anyway, that's another story. This experience piece, and going back to the marketing, why are businesses cutting it? Because digital marketing is so cost effective, so easily measurable, whether it's B2B or B2C or B2B2C. There are so many methods out there, so many businesses, so many AIs. So Albert, Refuel 4, they're all used by Facebook, for example, that you can do the lightest of light touches. You could spend £100 with a test bed campaign where you have 10 lines of copy and 10 images, and you run them side by side. So 10 times 10, you've got 100 versions. And you could run those in a spread demographic, spread geographic, £100 just to test. And you can get some firm results, so that you know when you set up your top 1% lookalikes, you're only reaching the top 1% of people who responded to your ads in the way you wanted. And also you get all of the data back about who they are, the data capture that you can get, the call to actions you can get. It's almost as if it's a fear of the unknown, rather than understanding that new methods and new ways of working can empower and enhance what the business is lacking at that time. And because it's digital marketing in particular is so adaptable, and you can pivot left, right, and center, there's no excuse. So for businesses who use the excuse, oh, we're going to cut the marketing budget, like I've got a question there. How do you change an old school business's mindset? Even when you've got it on a plate, like, well, we can try this. Just give me, a few £100. I can show you, and they still won't do it. What would you do in that circumstance?
I think you need to find somebody who's going to listen at the end of the day, right? It's basically, my view would be find a type of experiment that can be run with the money that can be spent and risked, right? However small it is, but that will produce a metric that will give somebody confidence that actually you're onto something. And if you do all of that and it's still no, I mean, there could be two types of no's, right? There could be type of no where we literally right now, I actually don't even have that much to spend. I would love to, but I can't. And sometimes that is the case, right? But I would say it's more often, the mindset is just where, leadership don't get it. Then you're probably in the wrong place. Sorry, I'm being really blunt, right? But kind of, life is too short, to waste your talent in the, in the environment where that's just futile.
I don't know. I mean,
I have a question. Sorry, Kevin, go.
No, I was just going to say, to defend the we're not going to spend anything camp, I can think of two reasons why people would do that are actually quite valid. And one is just the pragmatic thing. I mean, as soon as the coronavirus thing started, everyone was sharing their reports of marketing is the thing you shouldn't spend. Look, it shouldn't cut. Sorry, here's the data that proves it, right? And all these things went round and round on LinkedIn. And I just looked at it and thought, I remember a few years ago, I was on the management team of a company. It was a startup. We went from 0 to 10 million a year in revenues in a few years, right? So 3 or 4 years. And everyone went, oh, they're really successful. They must have a lot of money. It's like, no, we had no money at all. We had profit, but no money, because it's all self-funded growth, right? So you can have a company which is on one metric, e.g. profitability, really successful, but they have no spare cash. And so if anything like coronavirus hits and your cash flow projection takes a dip, it doesn't matter how profitable you are, you're now sitting there thinking, oh God, are we going to close the doors? Right? Now, we in that case never had a coronavirus type incident, but day to day, it's like, oh God, how do we pay the bills, however successful we are? And I can completely sympathize with people in companies who are going, I don't care what your study says, and I don't care how small an amount of money you need. I don't want to tell you this because I don't want to demotivate you, but we're screwed financially. The cash flow alone means that we are completely screwed, right? And the other one that I can imagine, which in a way is harder to defend but is more human, is I'm terrified. I'm running this company. It's incredibly scary. It's incredibly complicated. I barely understand what's happening at the best of times, however many dashboards people put in front of me. And something absolutely huge has just happened. I'm going to freeze everything I can freeze. And I don't want people knocking on my door asking me to make an exception for them, because I'm crapping myself already. Right now, you could say, well, if that's your mentality, what the hell are you doing running a company? You haven't got the spine for it. But I can understand, given the level of uncertainty and fear around coronavirus, why somebody would just go, I'm going to put a blanket stop on anything that is not absolutely vital right now.
No, I agree. I agree with that. What I meant by experiments is, so one thing is where you have all the studies and everything else, right? Now studies, I'm gonna equate that to slideware. Yes, they were there, but it's for somebody else. It's not me. But if you can find anything that any spare change that you could literally spare, right? That you could run a small experiment where that can result into new business, right? You will know that, okay, I can now take that and put it back in and start from there and kind of start moving forward. So for me, yes, you've got all this research is there, and that can give some confidence that you're going in the right direction, but it's nowhere as impactful when you actually do it hands-on in front of those, in front of those people, in front of those decision makers. And to be fair, yes, I said, don't find the right environment. What I mean by that is that, yes, there are going to be genuine situations. And if you really believe that, fair enough, I can see that leadership has got best intentions and right now it's not possible, but I know that they want to back me, then yes, the right intentions, the right mentality is there. Wait for the opportunity.
I'm even thinking from like a consulting perspective. We mentioned Accenture before, and I believe kind of Capita is a consultancy as well. I'm just wondering, like, for our old school companies that need design thinking, innovation, support from consultants, if they need to really go down all the way to let's cut all the costs which are not necessary, I'm kind of wondering what happens in the future of consultancy. I do think that external perspective is really key, and I work in telco, and I consulted myself, and I can see that a lot of projects are getting de-scoped, especially the ones that are a bit more innovative. And I'm just wondering that I'm hoping that these companies hire even more consultants because they need that fresh perspective, but I'm scared that it's going to go in the direction where it's let's cut costs. We don't have space for consultants at the moment. So I'm just kind of wondering what's going to be the impact on consultancy as well as an industry.
Well, there are different types of consultants. Let's say there's a
true strategy or delivery. Yeah.
Okay, so I think consulting is dead. Long live consulting, right? And it's not the first time that people talk about the fact consulting is dead and long live consulting. This is another opportunity for consulting. I would say to stop doing PowerPoints and step in a company, leverage data science, leverage artificial intelligence, leverage tools that already exist, and really recommend things to the client based on in data that exists inside the company, outside the company, and then those consultants are going to be rewarded depending on the outcome they help the company to achieve.
Yeah, value driven.
Yeah, outcome driven.
Exactly.
I think outcome driven or a part of the revenue becomes outcome driven, plus leveraging data science, AI, sensory AI. This is going to become the future of consulting, because I guess nobody is willing to pay anymore to get a smart guy in. Here's a beautiful slide.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
The other type of consulting or consultants, let's say technology or software developers, let's call it. Sometimes we call it, that guy is a consultant. No, he's a software developer. And sometimes he works in the company for 5 to 10 years. That's outsourcing or body shopping. I think that business will always be here somehow. It's an easy way to get skills in, but strategy and management consulting, unless these guys, let's say, by the way, I'm a consultant as well, unless we come up with tools, okay, with small cross-functional teams working just like a startup. So in fact, consultants can become startup consultants, let's say. We work using startup methods. We use growth hacking techniques to find an unmet customer need, to help a product to grow. Or else I think that there's no future. I think now it's really time to rethink how the consulting industry works, because people don't have money to buy slide decks anymore.
Yeah, no, I think what you said also, I think it's about being like an exemplar colleague almost. It's like integrating teams, saying, you know, how to delight customers, as you mentioned before, really show them the right frameworks, but then kind of step away and let them do that and then go to another client and show them the way again. Yeah.
It's curious because Kana mentioned Japan and how Japan developed the need for the lean system. Toyota, I think it was the Toyota TPS, Toyota Production System, then lean, to find opportunities to improve the product, by the way, efficiency as well. And there's a company, a consulting firm called Kaizen, which means small improvements over time or continuous improvement, Kaizen. And their revenue model, because they are consultants as well, is based on outcomes. So they usually charge a small amount up front, and then they will identify opportunities to optimize, okay, or to capture value that is not being captured by the existing business model. And then they agree, okay, if we help you to grow or to optimize your structure, you will give us 2% over a period of 12 months or 24 months. And then the company, the client can agree or not. But I've worked with these guys before when I was head of innovation in the Department of Justice in Portugal, for instance. And that was the approach. Small upfront value, imagine 10K, it's nothing, it's almost for free. But then, okay, if we are able to optimize at the national scale, we want this. So it's a good risk, it's a positive risk. Because if they succeed, okay, I will get a lot more money from efficiency or revenue I'm not capturing, and they get their pie as well. So I guess all the employees that work at Kaizen are really engaged to find good outcomes and not just to send out slide decks, outputs.
Maybe a follow-up question is, what metric would you recommend for delighting customers? Like, how do you kind of measure? I mean, I know the customer satisfaction score, or, you know, I'm just wondering if you have an opinion on metrics that measure customer delight.
Well, may I jump in on this one?
Of course.
Go for it, Steph.
Okay, so one of the best or most successful ways I've ever seen people working is when they treat a client like a complete individual, like a unique person that they deal with, rather than kind of blanket approach. Okay, we work to this methodology, and this methodology means that we will measure X by X. Show me one business that isn't completely unique, that if you don't do a deep dive and you don't ask the questions and you don't get to know your client, because it's a lot about getting to know your client too, only then can you truly understand what they need to know and what they will expect to see and how you can surprise and delight them. So it doesn't work. I've said this before, it doesn't work for clothes, and it definitely doesn't work for clients. One size does not fit all. And what we need to do is treat our clients as unique individuals as much as we treat our friends and our family.
A very good point, Steph. I mean, and I would really echo that. So if we go back and if you take a look at product development, we really always start from the customer. we start from that user, we develop that user persona, we really research that, we try to understand and really get into the head, we observe them, we understand them, we empathize with them, right? Now that helps to create that human and personal experience. To your question, how do we really track that? How do we know that we are really delighting? We know that there are two types of data that we're going to get. There's going to be quantitative and qualitative data. Right now, I'm just trying to think from top of my head, like, how will you capture, right, that has effectively been, that something has been delightful experience. And if I look at software, right, you always need to have metrics to see how much is something used, but that is not going to tell you how delighted somebody actually was. So you will depend on gathering some kind of data where you will get a feedback, whether you build that into at the end of that user experience, how did you like the service from 1 to 5 or something like that, or whether you have regular research sessions where you really talk to somebody. And I believe my experience in product development has been that you need to invest in both, right? So a quantitative research tells you what, right? But qualitative will tell you why. Qualitative will give you more insight. And my gut feeling here is that qualitative will give you better answer whether something is delightful or not.
Well, there are a few tools now for real-time sentiment analysis tools that scan Twitter, for instance. Let me give an example. Revolut. I think Revolut is the first bank that people love. I'm calling it a bank just to simplify. People tell good things about the bank. Telling good things about the bank, it's not usual. And take a look at Twitter, guys sharing the love they feel for that brand. Then another key thing that in particular product organization measure are reviews on app stores. They read that, they scan that information all the time. And usually product owners, CPOs and CEOs, they are really worried about if they are a 4.7 or a 5. Or 4.9, or suddenly they become a 3.5 on the App Store or an Android store. So that's another metric. But depending on your product, to answer to that question, you need to find your North Star. What is the key metric for you? If it is a social network, it might be usage, the amount of time people spend on the platform, or the amount of time people spend and actually add content to the platform. You need to find your North Star, in fact, because that's the thing that will drive more probably revenue, more usage, and then more users. It might be recommendations as well. The viral coefficient, how many users I bring in as a user. If I bring 1, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, it's fine. If I bring 10, Gmail was famous because of that. When they started, we could send 10 invites, I think. And they were the target for them was 1 person to bring 7 people. So that's how they became famous. And I guess if someone is recommending a product to another person, or 5 or 7, it really means that they love the product. And with data science, again, we can track usage. Without running surveys, we can actually know where they are clicking, the love they feel for feature A, and the hate they feel for feature B, because they never click on feature B. So maybe we don't need feature B. Just take that feature out of your product and reduce the total cost of ownership, because that feature is not necessary. So again, it's data, reading quantitative and qualitative data outside of your organization as well, social networks, app stores, maybe forums, Quora, in others. I think all of these together represent insights for your innovation funnel. Ideas that are going to be reviewed. Maybe one of those ideas is going to become a feature, or part of the next generation of your product.
This is a super depressing conversation. This is just so depressing, because what you've just outlined there is, once you've invested the money, if the people who are spending it well are intelligent, whether it's Steph with her insane multivariate testing matrix that gives her 100 variants, or whether it's Kana with his I'm going to spend 2 weeks delighting you. If we invest the money in this, and we've got competent people who are being responsible with that spend, they will be able to show us at the end that it was a good spend. How are we going to sign that off? No organization does that. And I mean, we get that on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, we can sit here and say, well, we want this to be on an iterative development model, and we actually can't tell you what we're going to output at the end, but we'll show you along the way and we'll validate it. Or actually, on a more extreme case, we want to run 2-day validated iterations, right? This all sounds wonderful until you put it in front of a finance director who says, I want to see a purchase order that tells me what I'm going to get for this. And, you know, bringing this back to what Kana was saying about the Kano model, you know, we've had these conversations where we can say, look, this is the Kano model. Everything you've just asked us for us to deliver in the next 3 months are on these, you know, they're on these lines. They're threshold attributes you're over-investing in. They're features that you're building in, additional features because some stakeholder in the organization is asking for it. Nobody is asking us to invest in the excitement attributes. Give us some discretionary budget and let us show you. But us, whatever we've achieved for the organization in the past, saying, give us some discretionary budget and let us show you, is never as powerful in the organization as, yes, but I've got this really bullish alpha male stakeholder who demands feature X and feature Y, right? And, you know, what we're also here saying is, look, we can deliver amazing value if you judge us in retrospect. But in commercial organizations where if you're a department lead or a business unit lead, or you're fighting for a particular initiative, you know, communications versus marketing versus product development, whatever, everyone is overstating what they can deliver in order to get budget. And, you know, in my situation as an external, I'm up against agencies who are just massively over-egging what they can deliver to get the maximum revenue out of the clients. And clients quite reasonably are skeptical of anything an agency promises. Bosses are skeptical of everything that the business unit heads or the department heads are promising. And it's like, oh God, how do we get anybody to sign this stuff off? How do we get somebody to sign off? I don't know what we're going to do, but it'll be a bit like the white gloves and it'll be awesome and you'll love it, honest. That's just, it's horrible.
One thing I found really helpful is, and I know to some of my colleagues here on the call, I do sound like a broken record, but I'm very passionate and very really subscribe to the value chain mapping as a foundational kind of guiding principle when it comes to product development for, you know, defining my roadmap. And value chain mapping is effectively a method where you map that process, you map that user journey, and you're identifying, you know, who are the users, what are the expected outcomes, what are the pains, what are the problems, and, you know, what kind of solution you're putting against it, but what is that effectively worth, right? And you're adding value to every single feature that you want to put on a roadmap, and you backing that by research. So if somebody comes and says, why do you want that feature? I want that feature. You know, however senior they are, you can just say, well, look, here it is. If I build this feature, I'm providing this much value to the customer. And sales, of course, it's much easier to sell. But if I put your feature, I'm struggling to quantify value I'm delivering, right? Now, they can choose to be rational or not. That's a different story, right? And whether you're going to win that argument or not will depend how rational they are. But at least you have that rational foundation on the back of which you can allow data to speak. Yes, you do need to invest more into research, and you're kind of moving slower as a result of that. But I would say, you know, my principle is always you really need to see that how risk averse your sponsor is, right? It's a bit like when you go and see independent financial advisor, where shall I put my money? The first thing that they do, they're gonna evaluate the risk profile. Right. So the same thing here, I can go and shoot off the hip because I have a feeling. I'm feeling it. I know this is a good thing to do. You might get there, right? But it's more risky. You can't really substantiate that. So I'm going to invest, in my case, when I'm working in corporate world where, you know, a risk attitude, people are very, very risk averse, right? I have to gather as much data as I can to support my arguments where I'm walking in a room with data and I can have a rational discussion.
If you're comparing features with features, that's certainly true. But how do you get investment in a process which ends up with the white gloves? Because nobody walked into a boardroom and said, I want money to put into this white glove project.
So I would say this is where your credibility is. You know, if you were in for a year and you kept on delivering, and you have a good track record, you'll start getting away. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Right? So you support what is there, and you can say, look, this is Delighter, right? And Delighter might not bring any irreplaceable value. It's there to delight, but it's going to have this kind of effect, and this is the science behind it. And I'm not asking for a lot. So for example, how much did this cost? Right? Not a lot. But to be honest, for me, it was actually more useful than this that costed more, or than this that costed even more.
Yeah, kind of, but
if you got funding for this, and you that really moved the needle, you get money for this after that, and then you get money for this after that.
The real cost is not the glove or the feature. The real cost is the crazy guy that convinced the decision maker get that thing in front of you.
So I've got a question. So one, I'm sorry, I disagree. It's not depressing, because it's dependent on who you're working with. Some people think this is depressing, fine, and that's okay. That's the diversity element, which, you know, if what we do isn't diverse, then we're doing something wrong, right? So my take on it is, it isn't depressing, and one thing that's right for one client will not be right for another client, and you have to do it on its own merits. You have to do it on knowing the beast. You have to do it on knowing what the outcomes need to be, and the people that you're working with, and what will win their hearts and minds, and also do the best for their business. So again, these blanket statements, these sweeping statements, have no place in the future of innovation, because innovation is about being individual and diverse. I'm really gonna ask us all to maybe take a step back and go, okay, perhaps there is a different way of doing things, and perhaps there's a place for all of us in the process, and for all of us to have our opinions, and the clients will match up.
Silence in the room now.
Drop the mic. Sorry, guys. No, it's just, you know, it's all well and good thought leadership, right? We talk and we talk and we talk and we talk. And how often do we listen, right? I want to listen to my clients. I want to hear what they actually want, and then I want to deliver on it. I can have my opinions, but if I don't listen, if I keep talking, I'm not doing my job properly, and neither are you guys.
Hi, Joao. Good to see you here as well.
Hi, Hugo. How are you?
Hugo, start talking, please.
No, I do have a question for Joao. Joao is a rock star in the service management space. I guess ITIL, right?
Yeah, come on, Hugo. It's my birthday today, so Hugo sent me a message via WhatsApp. Hey, come on, give 5 minutes of your time. Well, Hugo, what's your question?
The question is very easy. How do you delight your customers, your clients?
Well, I have a small company in Portugal, a service management training company, and we provide huge amounts of training in C-levels, okay? Not just ITIL, not just processes, but how to use the processes in the business. Right now, I always define that we should control the processes, but now with the high velocity IT, with this new word, the agile word, we must deliver everything to our client. So it's not what I deliver to the client, it's what is the value that I deliver to the client. Right now, the keyword is not what it's not the delight, it's the value. Even more, it's the co-creation. We should co-create value with the client. Not to have a client once, is to have a client plenty of times. It's not just to have a chocolate cake once, is to have plenty of chocolate cakes. So, Hugo, thank you for your invitation. I must go. Okay, but thanks a lot, Hugo.
Pleasure to see you.
Okay, you too, my friend. You too, my friend.
So it's about value. It's about outcomes. We were talking about that.
It's not the outputs. Okay, it's not the outputs. It's not the report that I deliver to you. It's the outcome. Is what you will do with the report. It's not, for example, I'm in Lisbon. I go to IKEA to buy some stuff. It's the output. And the outcome is what I will build with that output. The output is, for example, I went to Continent or some grocery and to have some ingredients, and the outcome it's the meal. And even more, the companies need to focus not in outputs but in outcomes. When I'm delivering the training, the main focus is, hey, it's not the output. The output, you all going to pass the exam. Yes, but the main issue here, it's the outcome. What you will learn and what you will experience in 1 week, in 1 month, in 1 year. Okay, that's the main focus. Goodbye, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Enjoy your birthday. All right. So any final questions for Kana, our product manager that loves to delight clients? I still have here something from IKEA. This was my experience also during the lockdown. I was using just only my laptop, right? Then, okay, my neck is in pain, so I need a stand. So now I find myself with many gadgets that I don't need, but 2 months ago, while I was here in lockdown, I was like, okay, I need this, I need that. Now I only need 20% of what I brought in via Amazon. So this was my lockdown experience, just to compare with yours. And my chair is still terrible, okay? But it costs a lot of money, so I will keep this one. Kana, it was a pleasure.
That's all it costed.
I will upgrade next time. Guys, thank you all for joining another cafe. This was a different session, no slide deck. It was all about value, outcomes, how to reshape the consulting industry. That was a key question. Thanks for asking. In marketing, the importance of marketing, in investing in marketing in times of crisis. So yeah, see you next week, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kana.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.